climate change is the biggest crisis that all countries are facing at the moment. It doesn't matter where you are, we have one planet, and this is planet Earth. We have no home to go to apart from this planet. Whether we face cyclones, sea level rise, droughts, floods, it doesn't matter. Extreme weather is what we're going to be dealing with for the foreseeable future.
It is very commendable that the African Union Commission has seen it fit not only to develop protocols that enhance human mobility and the free trade that comes with it, but also protocols, transhumance protocols, that seek to facilitate the movement of nomadic populations, 1/3 of which are resident on this continent. We need to ensure that those policies take account of the broader continental ambitions of a more integrated continent that encourages and facilitates free movement. So again, important to emphasize that the policies are there. It's their implementation that sometimes is lagging behind, but I don't think Africa can be faulted for lacking in ambition to see freer movement and free movement that takes account of the impact that climate change is continuing to wreak across the continent.
The first step is to understand that we have a huge responsibility, not only for us, but for the entire globe. And yeah, we've been a bigger part of the problem, not only in the past, but still today. It's highly important that we act. And of course, the first thing is not that important whom we are acting for, because the benefit going to be for anybody when it comes to prevention, but not when it comes to the question of resilience and the question of adaptation. And this is the moment when countries like Germany have to understand that they have a huge responsibility. And this is not only about about the rate of carbon emission of us. It's also a question of history and about colonialism, which of course is one of the reasons why a lot of countries in the global south, it's not only in Africa, but especially in Africa, are now lacking capacity and capability to face the huge challenge that we're talking about in this day. It's not about coming over and saying we're going to help. It's coming over and have a dialogue, an equal dialogue. The law just being mentioned by Judy is a terrific one. It's amazing that Kenya is a leader in this issue, and we could adapt a lot of things that we can learn a lot also from Kenya. Like there are a couple of things we can offer, and this mindset is so important. Of course, the question of the root causes of migration is always a super important issue. To be honest, I developed some kind of an allergy against the terminus for the last years because it's used for everything, and it's misused by a lot of people. But of course, helping that people first can stay where they are, and if it's too late, to try to help those countries who are generous to them, and then try to help them. And if this is not enough, if they need help, we have to understand that this is our duty also. The question of recognizing climate change as a cause legally by the United Nations, so by the international community, as a reason for migration. We know that this is happening.
There is no category like such as climate refugees. So no, there are no provisions for accessing residence in Europe for an African that is the victim of climate change. Important though to note, Christine, is that most Africans are migrating across borders, not across oceans. So most Africans who are seeking refuge from environments that are degraded or from climates that can no longer support their livelihoods are not crossing the oceans. Many of them are actually moving within the same country. They're internally displaced. And occasionally they move across borders. Very few of them, really just a trickle, make their way across oceans. Bringing it back to the issue of climate-induced migration, I would like to point to the African Union's Kampala Convention, which has been in place for decades now, and which has given a lot of African governments the legal framework and the basis from which to also develop their own national legal frameworks to be able to better govern human mobility within their national spaces. So we have on the continent a lot to work with in terms of policy frameworks. The question again is how we ensure that the provisions of the Kampala Convention are well known across all African countries and domesticated. The demand for some of these legal migration pathways by far outweighs available opportunities for legal migration. And the discussion in terms of continent to continent, through continent to continent arrangements continue, with a view to trying to see how to better manage migration so that it becomes not a perpetual source of friction between the two continents, but a good basis for cooperation on migration, but also beyond.
From my own experience, I can tell you that what is needed is transparency. Transparency and mutual respect. It affects all of us. Coming back to the issue of migration, as Maureen stated, people don't want to move. You know, people do not want to move. They want to stay at home. It is a catastrophe that is displacing families unnecessarily. So as equal partners, AU, EU, and other multilateral partners, and even at the bilateral level, we need to be more transparent. We need to include all levels, from the community to the national level, to the regional level, and then to the broader international level. Let us also remember that implementation and execution also means that the private sector, government, civil society, NGOs must also work together as partners and stop this culture of suspecting each other. We must exercise what I call a brevity of words. I don't like speaking, I like acting. So let's not speak, let's not write any more reports. The science is out there, the relations are out there. We have all the information that's required at the moment to make these transformative decisions, including all partners. So brevity of words and extravagance in action is what we need.
If we as Europeans want to change our mindsets, we have to listen. We see that there is this lack of initiatives on national and continental levels in Europe when it comes to the proper and efficient and necessary dialogue and cooperation. So we have to talk also about the municipality level. We should really put much more effort in this partnerships and then bring much more cooperation ambition to the level of on the sub-national level.
My one is that I think we need bold, ambitious agendas on the continent. A lot of what holds us back in many fields, both on this continent and beyond, is short-termism. Agenda 2063 takes a long-term view on some of these problems. And I think because of Agenda 2063 and specifically its 10-year action plan, we have Africa moving towards continental integration at a pace that even 5 years ago was unthinkable. Second is that I think partners, Western partners, need to look at what Africa's ambitions are and support these and ensure that none of that funding that is given in any way undermines, even if inadvertently, some of these very clear directions that the continent has set for itself. Africa will be better off more integrated rather than fragmented, as is the case. And I would add Europe and the West would be better off with an Africa that is stronger, more integrated, and more economically prosperous. And then third point, I think we need a lot more courage in talking about migration, including with our domestic audiences, than is currently happening. And these are conversations that need to be based on good data, not on myths and fears and a lot of misinformation about migration and migrants.
Let me just conclude by saying that, migration is as old as humanity. Climate change and what we're experiencing now, especially the acceleration of climate change, is human-induced. And we can do something about this, and we know what to do. As we move forward to COP26, it behooves the large polluters to do their part, to be ambitious enough, and not to deal cards under the table the way they normally do. Let us move forward together to address this particular issue of the climate crisis that we're in. If we thought that 2020 was bad, 2021 is going to be worse. More hurricanes, more cyclones. We're already going to face the El Nino more and more. So the catastrophes are going to increase. We are one race, one people, one planet. The brains that got us into this problem are the same brains that are going to get us out of it. Migration is part and parcel of who we've always been. Let us accommodate each other and work with each other as human beings.